Grid tonight. Spire Motorsports fined Carson Hocevar for something he said about Mexico City. Will the young driver use this as a learning experience? Some big storylines emerged at Le Mans last weekend. What's the latest in the Hypercar class? Nolan Siegel issued an apology after an outburst on the radio at Gateway. Did he even need to apologize, or is this all just a huge overreaction? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert, and with me as always, Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone to interact with us in the chat, support us through Super Chat, and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. And I'm glad for the first time in a while I made it through the intro without a technical difficulty throwing me all over stumble. So I'm going to take that as a huge win and go away for a little bit to let you guys talk a little bit of NASCAR. So Josh, take it away with our top story this evening.
Thanks, Kobe. Evening to you, evening, Matt. And yeah, finally got through it. Now you're going to let me do some of the horrific pronunciations of Mexican words. So let's try and get through that. So before last weekend's NASCAR Cup Series race in Mexico City, Carson Hocevar made some controversial comments during his live stream on Twitch. Now, Hocevar went on a mini rant about the frustrations surrounding the Mexico City race. He said the whole experience would have been better if it was easier to travel there and felt safe getting from point A to point B. But he really raised some eyebrows when he referred to Mexico City as a S-hole in the stream, which has now been deleted. To show his complete lack of awareness, Total Play was the sponsor of his number 77 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet for Mexico City. Now, for those of you who don't know what Total Play is, they're the leading telecommunications provider in Mexico. And guess where their headquarters are based? Inside Mexico City, the same city that Hocevar called a S-hole. Graphic courtesy there of Spire Motorsports. Now, a few hours after the Viva Mexico 250 ended, Hocevar posted this statement on social media. Maybe a kid that had never been out of the country until Thursday should ever give an opinion on what any place is like other than Portage in Michigan. When I answered that question on a stream, I was skeptical about the trip so far and believed everything I read or heard about Mexico City from people who more than likely also never have been here. Now that I've actually left my hotel a couple of times and raced here in front of some of the most passionate fans I've ever seen, my opinion has changed. I am embarrassed by my comments, by the race I ran, and I may have to move here to hide out from Ricky anyway. Count this as another lesson for me. In a season, I've learned so much. Don't believe everything you hear without seeing yourself. If anyone should give anyone or any place the benefit of the doubt, it's me. I'm sorry, Mexico City. Consider me an ally going forward and an example of getting off Twitch and seeing things with my own two eyes. Well, then yesterday evening, Spire Motorsports revealed that they decided to discipline Hocevar internally for his actions. The team fined its driver $50,000, which will be donated equally to three organizations that serve Mexican communities. First, the Mexican Red Cross, an organization providing humanitarian and medical relief aid across Mexico. The second, which is translated into 1 kilo of help, a non-profit combating childhood malnutrition and supporting early childhood development in rural communities. The third and final organization is United Way Mexico, which funds local NGOs that improve education, health, and housing in 22 Mexican states. However, Hocevar is also being required to do cultural sensitivity and bias awareness training as well. Now, Spire say their core value is respect, and they expect their employees to walk the walk in how they speak, compete, and serve communities that welcome NASCAR. The team believed that Hocevar's comments failed to meet that standard. Spire informed NASCAR of the decision to handle the Hocevar controversy themselves, as they remain committed to showcasing NASCAR's global growth and celebrating the passionate Mexican fan base we saw in the inaugural trip to Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Now, shortly after Spire issued the penalty, Hocevar responded to it on social media. Whoa, everybody, the truth is the truth. I said something that not only was wrong, I said it without even laying my own two eyes on CDMX or turning one lap in an actual race at an amazing facility that welcomed me with open arms. And I go and say that. Thank you for all the support, but I'm not sure we're on the same page. You guys want me to be. It was me who said it, and it was me who apologized after actually taking the time to explore the city and feel the passion of every fan in attendance. I appreciate the opportunity to learn, and I knew before this weekend what respect means to this organization, and I didn't meet the standard, so I got what I deserved. I hate learning these lessons in the public eye and bringing any negative attention to Spire or me. We've been fast just about every week, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of mistakes left in me. I appreciate growing up in front of you all, and you guys get to see the good and bad. I'm just me. I'm trying. It just doesn't always go the way I want, and I bring a lot of this on myself. However, I love being in this garage with this team surrounded by the best drivers and the best fans in the world. See you in Pocono. Well, Matt, how bad did it look for Carson Hocevar to refer to Mexico City as an S-hole while a Mexico City-based company was sponsoring his car? And did Spire Motorsport take the right step to address this controversy?
Well, good evening, Josh. Good evening, Kobe. Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's all a bit messy, isn't it, this? For poor old Carson, who's got caught in the middle of the S-storm himself with this one. I think you take a step back from him at the moment and you just take the kind of global view. If you've never been to somewhere and you have a view that is put upon you by television, streaming services, the internet, social media, and it doesn't take your fancy, I've got flies buzzing in front of my face, it doesn't take your fancy, then perhaps you are going to have a negative view and perhaps have a negative comment about it. Which is clearly what Carson has done. And, you know, as he said in the first statement there, you know, he's, apart from going to racetracks all his life, he's lived in his hometown at Portage, Michigan, there in that top line. So maybe, you know, the worldly view, and I'll come to this when perhaps when we get to hots and knots about this race later on, is a thing. But he's come out and he's done a kind of double apology on this, double down on his apology, perhaps, you know, having the comment with Mexican sponsors on the car in Mexico for the Mexican race was not wise, with Total Play there on the car. But yeah, not a good look for Carson. We've talked a lot about him in the last few weeks, really, about his speed on the racetrack and in that playoff bubble contention. You're going to get on to the second part of why that now might not happen in a moment, but they've hit him with the, let's face it, peanuts monetary fine. They had to show willing, I guess, and to do something. And let's hope, as he said in his second part of that statement there, Carson, that he can grow from this and push on forward. And hopefully after a bit of a tricky weekend on track, he can get things back on the straight and narrow again at Pocono this week. But, as you're about to get onto, Josh, might not have it all his own way.
No, and as Chuck says, golly, old shucks routine again, tired of it all and don't buy it. Yeah, well, unfortunately for us, there's negative storylines as well done in there. We're going to that in a second. You say, Denver says, Carson is not making any friends on or off the track. I think smart by Spire to find him is now also being be smart by Ricky to wreck him in the next a few weeks as well. Yes, I'm glad Carson Hocevar made an apology about what happened as well. So, unfortunately, as I said for Hocevar, the negative storylines don't end there. For the second time in the last 3 races, he had an on-track incident with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, in the stadium section, he spun out Stenhouse, and to make matters worse, Hocevar wasn't even on the lead lap. Stenhouse exited his car furious and quickly approached Hocevar, who was still sitting in his car after the race. Now, according to Jordan Bianchi from The Athletic, when asked what he told Hocevar, Stenhouse said that he was going to beat Hocevar's you-know-what once they returned to the United States. Stenhouse has clearly had enough of Hocevar after the two drivers initially made contact during the race at Nashville a few weeks ago. Now, it seemed like things were good between them because they talked after Hocevar wrecked Stenhouse in Mexico City, and we even saw them talking and smiling during driver injuries at Michigan. Now, the second incident in 3 weeks with Stenhouse on the losing end of it, whatever progress was made in the phone call after Nashville appears to be gone. So, Matt, are you convinced that Stenhouse will retaliate, and is it time for someone in the Cup Series garage to finally teach Hocevar a lesson?
Take him behind the woodshed. He was never going to do it, was he, Ricky? Because who knows what could have happened if he'd done something at the weekend. He might not be racing this weekend because he might be in a Mexico City jail for all he might know for doing something on pit lane or in the paddock area or whatever after the race last week. We don't know. Well, I don't know unless it's been come up on it. I haven't seen it on social media this week. But if you just take what we saw on the race coverage on Sunday of the replays of the incident, Carson kind of drove into Ricky in the left-hander there in the middle of the stadium and kind of sheepishly parked at the side of the racetrack as if to wait for Stenhouse to continue before he carried on. I was like, if I get in front of him, he's probably going to catch me up and run into me. So I'll stay back and wait for whatever to happen. But it didn't. I mean, be aware in race control, I guess, on Sunday if Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Carson Hocevar get together at 200 mile an hour plus Pocono. I mean, we've seen some big accidents in turn one in the past, haven't we, with single car incidents. With the Austin Dillon one a couple of years ago, we ended up throwing his helmet at someone. I think that was Stenhouse, wasn't it? A couple of years back in turn one after he got wrecked down there. Not the place that you want to go around wrecking people. One of the fastest tracks on the calendar. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let's hope, but I'm sure they will at some point, that Amazon will go, oh, here we go. They're next to each other on the racetrack at some point. And they're going to build it up and they're going to run into each other and then nothing will happen, which is generally what happens in these kind of situations. I think it will probably come, whether it's this weekend or at Bristol in a few weeks on the short track or somewhere. But Stenhouse, as we know from the Kyle Busch incident at the All-Star race last year, don't want to get on the wrong side of him. He will be waiting by your trailer at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was kind of glad actually when I was watching that, very tired, and before I took over in the IndyCar race, that there wasn't a fight because I keep getting promised one and I never won the call at the right time. Now, Matthew, who was on the call, and you were there too.
Sorry. Yeah, we were on the call. Kobe reminds us in the background it was Tyler Reddick that Austin Dillon threw his helmet out a couple of weeks ago at Pocono, not Stenhouse.
Matthew says Carson has so much talent, he obviously can win. Now he has to learn how to win and how to be a good representation of the sport and a future star.
We've seen this, haven't we? Not just in NASCAR, with young talent in other formulas that they got themselves into trouble from time to time, and then they've straightened themselves out, and then they've been good guys. So let's hope Carson can go down that path as well. Chicago or Sonoma is the Carson graveyard, says Denver. Well,
Chicago, probably. Yeah, that could be a lot of fun, though, to be fair. We've got Pocono coming up next. That could still be something as well. Let's not forget that. I swear to God, if it happens at Pocono, I'm going to be furious because I'm not in the box for that. Well, keeping up with that, we've got one more NASCAR story. JR Motorsports announced that team owner Dale Earnhardt Jr. will make his debut as a crew chief this weekend at Pocono Raceway. Earnhardt Jr. will serve as Connor Zilich's interim crew chief and sit atop the box for the number 88 team. Now, Zilich's regular crew chief, Marty Lindsley, was issued a one-race suspension for 2 loose lug nuts at Nashville. Now, the rookie driver is already locked into the playoffs thanks to his win at Coda, so letting Junior do this race is a low-risk move. After being a driver, team owner, series owner, broadcaster, and podcaster, the Hall of Famer gets to add crew chief to his resume. The photo taken by James Gilbert from Getty Images. Steve might be a little bit nervous when he goes back into the box on Sunday, but how big of a challenge will it be for Dale as a crew chief on Saturday?
Yeah, if it all goes wrong on Saturday, I'm sure the guys in the Amazon booth are going to give him a good ribbing on Sunday if there's an incident. As you say, Zilich is locked in, so it is a low risk move. I mean, he owns the team, he owns the car. He can. This is my hat. I can do as I want with it. So yeah, more power to the elbow of Dale Jr. We'll interesting to see how he gets on. I'm sure all the CW guys will have a immediate focus on him throughout the race on Saturday at Pocono. cue Matthew Owen's comment appearing on screen shortly about this? Because I'm sure, well, I know for a fact, because we've already talked about this afternoon, that he has a view on this. Evening, Mr. Owens. Yeah, clearly there wasn't anyone else available, perhaps, or they chose to, whatever, stick him on the box and see what happens. Yeah, let's see. If he ends up winning the race, goodness me, social media will explode. That's it.
Can't we see?
Race, not Junior, obviously.
Obviously. Well, he would win it as a crew chief. Can't wait to see how Dale Jr. does as a crew chief for Conor Zilich as Adam as well. Carson Graveyard at Bristol. Yeah, that could be fun. He will not be getting any breaks from anyone on short tracks, that's for sure. Bristol is going to be the one that it would probably happen at. I would like Dale Jr. crew chief SVG for Chicago Xfinity Series race in Chicago. That would be nice, actually, if that happened.
Well, unless you want SVG to win, but more on SVG later.
He can't. He's in the booth, isn't he? So, and it's his own production company.
Not for the Xfinity race, it isn't, though. You can do the Xfinity race still.
No, that's true. Yeah, not for the Xfinity race. Yeah, that's CW. Yeah. Dale Jr.'s crew chief seems a little high strung for that job, but we'll see at Pocono. Not like there's a lot of strategy there. No, turn left 3 times and just avoid getting launched into the wall. It's pretty. It's not a. I was looking the other day about somebody saying it was time to bring Pocono back for IndyCar, and I was like, no. I was like, nope, never. No. It needs to be 1,000,000 times safer before we even consider it. And right now, it's just not changed a bit.
No, I think to Chuck's point, we're going to see a lot more strategy on the Cup race on Sunday than we will on Saturday for Xfinity, because, of course, it's a much shorter race with short stages. So we'll see less of that going on. But looking forward to that Cup race on Sunday, because it always produces something slightly different.
So let's catch up with some of the main headlines after the 24 Hours of Le Mans now as well. And starting with McLaren, they officially unveiled their new LMDH car that they'll enter in the 2027 FIA World Endurance Championship season. Now, as most of us expected, McLaren is teaming up with United Autosports for its new project in the Hypercar class. Now, the new McLaren Racing Endurance team will be called McLaren United AS, and we'll see the new McLaren prototype designed by Dallara with a V6 twin-turbo engine as well. There's a picture of the mock-up on your screens now. Now, something else that has been rumoured for months has finally been confirmed. The current Jaguar TCS Racing Team principal from Formula E, James Barclay, will depart Jaguar and become the team principal of McLaren's Hypercar program. So, McLaren's CEO, Zach Brown, said that he's confident that McLaren United AS will establish itself quickly as a competitive and successful team under Barclay's leadership. During the unveiling last weekend, Brown was also asked about the possibility of entering IMSA, since they already raced there in LMP2 with United Autosports. Brown ruled out McLaren IMSA GTP program for 2027, as 2028 would be the earliest we'd see McLaren in IMSA's top category. Whether it's only for the endurance races or a full season, that's later to be decided. Graphic courtesy of McLaren. Kobe's back with us for this one. So, Kobe, what are your initial thoughts on McLaren's 2027 prototype, and does it seem like they're putting together a good combination for immediate success?
Well, by the looks of the prototype that they actually unveiled at Le Mans, I thought it looked pretty good, but just because it looks good, that doesn't mean that it's going to race well. I thought the Nissan LMP1 car looked really good with the front engine, but did it race good? Absolutely not. The design was, not the best. The car was, really slow, and this program only lasted, a very, very short amount of time. But given all that McLaren's investing in this program, I expect this car, to be competitive at some point. I don't know if it will be immediately, like Zach Brown and the McLaren group seems to think, but I do think that they are putting the right people in the right places to try to build this program up. I'm not surprised, that McLaren is forming an alliance with United Autosports, since, United Autosports is filling in the McLarens in the LMGT3 class. United also, Zach Brown's, professional sports car racing team alongside, his business partner, Richard Dean there. So not really a surprise to see these two, this brand and then this team joining forces. And James Barclay, I know it's been rumored for months that he was going to be leaving Jaguar, TCS, and Formula E and and returning to sports car racing. And we've seen, James Barkley obviously have a lot of success with Jaguar, over the last few seasons. Not as much lately as we've seen, but I think he is one of the right guys that you can appoint to lead this McLaren program, and looking forward to seeing what they do when it comes to 2027. And if we get to a point where, a Formula One Grand Prix is not clashing with the 24 Hours of Le Mans, if they have a space available on their roster, and if these two drivers are still driving for McLaren at this point, it would be great to see Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri competing in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And if they ever decide to, enter a car in IMSA for, let's say, the Rolex 24, and the other endurance races, would be great to see someone like a Pato Award, in a hypercar going for the overall win. And we'll have to see how McLaren's IMSA program goes if they decide to do that in the future. But overall, it seems like McLaren is, coming along quite nicely with their new prototype.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they get on. Obviously, the team is, as we talked about when we talked about them last week when we were doing our sort of Le Mans preview, when we talk about LMP2, we all went with United as the team to beat. Didn't quite work out for them in the race, but we know their pedigree over many years in both IMSA in LMP2 and the European Le Mans Series, multiple champions there, and in Asia as well, for that matter. More on the ASLMS in a moment. But United, yeah, very strong team. They've been looking, I think, with this in mind, with McLaren coming and has been talked about for many, many years, of United becoming a quote unquote factory team with a manufacturer tie-in, and now it's finally been revealed that this is what they've been kind of waiting for. So interesting to see how they get on. I think they're going to do fine. Whether they'll be winning, of course, is a very different matter, with all the manufacturers that are already in Hypercar in WEC, and we've got Hyundai to come, Ford to come, maybe Lamborghini coming back, depending on what happens with that program. At some point, this is going to be a bit like, Josh, the British Touring Car Championship from the late 90s, when all of the manufacturers came in, and when some of them couldn't win, they pulled the plug. So that's going to be interesting to see how that ends up going in WEC over the next 3 or 4 years. To Kobe's point about James Barkley, yeah, kind of, partly it's not gone so well this year for Jaguar in Formula E, has it? But last year they were, the strongest team with his leadership. So yeah, a good man to get at the helm. And Adam, kind of going with your thoughts about Lando, Oscar, and Pato, Kobe at the Rolex in a third car, perhaps that would be the star car. I mean, we know Lando's done the race before a couple of years ago, hasn't he? So that would be a cool thing to get them all together. But maybe after the weekend, cracks are appearing between the two Formula One drivers. We'll see.
Oh.
Shattering, I would assume, as well, and that's only going to get worse. More on that later on. Okay, so the ACO has announced that they'll introduce the Hypercar class to the Asian Le Mans series for the 2026 and 2027 season after some of the manufacturers requested it. Now, however, factory-backed teams with all pro driver lineups won't be a part of the equation. Instead, the Hypercar class in Asia will be designed for privateer teams with pro and AM driver lineups consisting of at least one bronze-rated driver per car. Now, in the last few years, we've seen healthy grids in the Asian Le Mans series among the LMP2, LMP3, and GT classes. Now, since the series switched to a 3-weekend, 6-race format from December throughout February, it's proven to be a popular concept since it's during a quiet period for sports car racing across Europe and North America. The ACO president as well, Pierre Fillon, said that the Asian motorsport market is booming with strong interest from manufacturers and teams to race cars that compete at Le Mans closer to home. So the ACO has given them what they want, adding a hypercar class for the season after next. In an interview with Sportscar 365, Fillon said he expects 2 to 3 hypercars during its season debut in Asia, with clients of Ferrari and Porsche looking to enter initially. The link to this article is in the video description below. In other positive news, the current set of hypercar regulations has been extended throughout the 2032 season to ensure a stable long-term formula as it continues to grow. Graphic courtesy of the Asia Le Mans series. Now, the 2028 LMP2 regulations were also unveiled, with Gibson technology set to return as the engine spec supplier, producing a turbocharged engine. The new chassis will also feature safety upgrades, including a new central driving position, with Orica and Ligier being chosen as the two constructors. Dallara and Multimatic won't be around for this cycle. Going back to the Sports Car 365 interview with Filoni, said that LMP2 will remain the top class in the European Le Mans series, and they currently aren't plans to bring Hypercar to the ELMS as well. The graphic courtesy of the FIA. So, Matt, start with you on this one. How do you feel about Hypercar coming to the Asian Le Mans series? And despite the new regulations for 2028, do you fear that LMP2 could be unintentionally phased out over time?
Well, we'll start with the Hypercar stuff. It'll be interesting to see who goes or what, because there isn't that many Hypercar customers. There's a couple of Porsches doing the rounds out there, obviously with sort of Proton and things. A couple of Cadillacs with Jota. We'll see how one of them ends up going to Asia. You could absolutely bet your bottom dollar if Yifei stays with AF Corsa, and why wouldn't he after winning at the weekend? Then that yellow Ferrari will turn up in the Asian Le Mans series as a privateer enter, but with him as part of the driving lineup. Interesting that they're going to switch it up and put a bronze in. That might scare a few of the privateer team owners away. But yeah, I mean, Hypercar is booming. People want to see these cars and give the people what they want, frankly. Take them to places, get them in the ELMS, just like we had in the olden days, I was about to say, late 2000s when Audi and Peugeot were in it, because there wasn't a World Endurance Championship at that point. And we can have some of those glory days back again on the European tracks, but outside of the WEC races. But yeah, business booming in Hypercar, much from the previous story about McLaren. So that's all good to see. LMP2, eventually, probably, yes, it is going to end up fizzling out. And we talked about this a lot over the last 12 months, really, since they got it brought back for Le Mans to be added just for Le Mans. Because, of course, we don't see LMP2 in WEC any other time of the year. Thought it produced a spectacular race at the weekend, mind you, in that class. It's a shame that it's going to be a spec car. It's always nice to see one or two manufacturers in there in terms of chassis manufacturers doing the rounds, although everyone has pretty much gone to the latest Orica over the last couple of years. But it was nice to have a bit of a mix-up in that class of different bodies and engines. But now everyone's going to be funneling down to this Gibson Orica over the next rule cycle. But how long has LMP2 got left? That is an unanswerable question at this moment in time.
Yeah, it was a really interesting move for the ACO FIA to decide to bring the hypercar class to the Asian Le Mans Series. Just show that business is booming in hypercars, and I'm afraid at some point in the future, I know it's weird to say this because this prototype formula, we have to say, IMSA, the ACO, FIA, they completely nailed this set of regulation, because it's been, as we've been saying for the longest time, last few years, we're in a golden age for sports car racing right now. In prototypes, it's just spectacular to be seeing all the different manufacturers coming in. As you talked about, got McLaren coming in. You mentioned Hyundai, Matt. They're gonna be using the Genesis brand. We got Ford coming in as well. It's just a really exciting time to be in sports car racing, and especially on the World Endurance Championship site, you have so many teams entering hypercar, especially for Le Mans. And I fear in the future, that that this set of regulations might, at some point we might see it just a 100% hypercar grid for a World Endurance Championship race. Just show you how these teams, drivers, and customers are so interested in this category that at some point in the future, I'm not just afraid that LMP2 is going to be phased out. I'm afraid that GT racing might get phased out too in the World Endurance Championship, and I wonder how they would handle that. I feel like GT racing, should be protected, because GT, is the backbone of sports car racing, and it would feel really weird not seeing those cars around in the future. But it's going to be interesting to see, if this hypercar class continues to grow, how are they going to handle the classes that they have. There wasn't enough room for LMP2 because they wanted to make room for extra hypercars, and if we keep getting these entries, are we going to start chopping down the LMG3s or just LMGT3s and then just get rid of them altogether? But right now, it seems like LMP2, although they have a new set of regulations coming, it's like that is, at some point, that is just going to be phased out. Asian Le Mans series, they've been able to attract, a healthy number of LMP2 cars over the last few seasons. And with the hypercars coming in, whether it's just 2 or 3 going for the overall win, one of the attractions of coming to the Asian Le Mans series, European Le Mans series as well, in LMP2, you can go for the overall win. That's exciting for the teams, rather than just going for a class when you can win overall, because you're gonna be declared the main winner of the event, obviously, compared to just winning, let's say, LMP3 or just the GT class in the Asian Le Mans series. So it's going to be interesting to see what will happen to LMP2 in Asia when this hypercar class come in, because I'm sure a lot of those teams, aren't going to be thrilled to be going back to compete in 4 class wins. And also interested in that, ACO seems very interested in keeping LMP2 the top category in Europe instead of, switching over to the hypercar program. I'm not sure it's going to be exciting at first, obviously, over in Asia, where we're seeing, let's say a Porsche and a Ferrari hypercar, driven by a customer going for the overall win. And then, you have a bunch of LMP2. So I guess at that point, an LMP2 car could potentially win overall if the top 2 hypercars have trouble. So I guess it's not all lost there, but I'm sure it'd be a bit of disappointment there. And to the point that you were making, Matt, about this class, like, since they're requiring at least 1 bronze in the car, these hypercars, they're tough to drive. So it's going to be a huge step up, whether you're, a gentleman driver or just a young driver just getting into sports car racing. It's a huge jump going from LMP3 to LMP2, but it's an even bigger jump going from LMP2 into this hybrid powered car, whether it's an LMH platform car or LMDH. Yeah, we've only seen quite a few, gentleman drivers, enter this class. I think Ben Keaton ran one at Daytona one year. I think it was either with JDC Miller Motorsports. Oh yeah. I think that was when they were with the Porsche, right? Or was it the Cadillac? So. Yeah. I think it was the Porsche. So we haven't seen a lot of customers, try to take on this car, but it really seems like the ACO is trying to steer the gentleman drivers in the direction of checking out the hypercars and see how to get along with it.
There's a reason why a corner of the endurance fan base on social media calls LMP3 the dentist class. It's because the wealthy dentists like to go and race the sports cars, but put them in a hypercar could be problems.
I might need a few fillings after that one. So after a clip, let's just get these first. Why can't they make a world championship? It'd be awesome to see the hypercar at Bathurst as well.
That's not going to happen.
That might be too dangerous.
The fly.
Yeah, I love the You're more likely to get them at the Bend Motorsport Park.
Yeah,
we had an Asian Mon Series race in 2019. They were going to go back in 20, but of course then the global caution flag came out and stopped everything. So yeah, we've had that, but that's the only place you're going to get any kind of sports car racing of that level in Australia.
Is Albert Park possible?
Yeah, well,
is that?
No. I mean, there's already talk of them having a supercar separate event the week before the Grand Prix.
Because it was
how
so
long
packed.
would it build up if you had an Albert Park WEC?
It's the month long of March for Albert Park.
March Madness at Albert Park.
Can't afford to be a racing driver, become a dentist in LMP3 someday. There you go. That'll do it. Yeah, actually, it's not a bad career path, really, as well. Especially the way my teeth are hurting at the moment with that still requiring more surgery throughout the season. So, after a clip of a fired-up Nolan Siegel from last Sunday night's NTT IndyCar Series race at Gateway made its way to the internet, the McLaren driver has apologised for his outburst on the radio. Siegel was very upset when race officials gave him a penalty for blocking Team Penske's Scott McLaughlin. As a result, he used some colourful language on the radio, dropping several F-bombs and telling Penske to go F themselves. Earlier today, Siegel issued an apology in the form of a video and then a statement on his Instagram story. He's put, I want to sincerely apologise to my team, our partners, and our fans for the outburst and language I used over the radio during the past race weekend. In the heat of the moment, I let my emotions take over, and that doesn't reflect who I really am. There's no excuse for what I said. I take full responsibility for my actions, and I regret letting down the incredible group of people who support me both on and off the track. I'm committed to learning from this and showing up with the professionalism, composure, and respect the team and our fans deserve. I'm focused on this upcoming race weekend and giving everything I have to deliver a performance worthy of the hard work the number 6 crew and I put in together. McLaren put out a statement stating, at our McLaren, we hold ourselves to the highest standards of professionalism, respect, and sportsmanship on and off the track. Obviously, they got AI to write that first bit, thinking about what they've done with drivers in the last few years. But nonetheless, it continues saying the language expressed over our radio during this past race weekend does not reflect who we are as a team. We do not condone that behaviour. We've addressed it directly with Nolan, and he is taking responsibility for his actions. Accountability is a core value at our McLaren, and we expect every team member to represent our partners, fans, and organisation with integrity. Additionally, we expect our fans and online community to act with respect and civility, and we will not tolerate hate, abuse, or discrimination within our social media platforms. It is vital that we collectively maintain a safe and welcoming community for all involved. Now, earlier this year, Indy Next driver Jack William Miller was penalised at Barber Motorsport Park for being disrespectful towards race officials. We never found out the specific details, but Miller was fined $5,000, placed on probation for the rest of the 25 season, and also set of tyres, and had to start the race from the back of the field. The photo taken here by Phil Hurley from Penske Entertainment. Well, Kobe, was Siegel's apology necessary, or is this whole situation being overblown?
I'll be honest, Josh. I had to sit back and think about this quite a bit this afternoon. Listening to the audio that was posted on social media of Nolan Siegel, telling Penske who F themselves how mad he was over the penalty. And it kind of reminds me of what we were talking about, last few months about, Werder, in the World Rally Championship, about the heat in the moment situations, how whatever you say on the radio, when you're in the heat of the moment. And if you happen to slip up, say drop an F-bomb or whatever, it's not going to cost you anything or anything like that. But if you're like, say, in like an official press conference setting, and you say that, then you're going to be in trouble. The way I viewed this Nolan Siegel situation was potentially, maybe they had him put out this apology himself, and then had the team put out the apology to basically avoid what happened, to Jack William Miller. And, since this, this new hybrid engine's come around in IndyCar, and admittedly, the hybrid has, performed reasonably well the last two races at Detroit and Gateway. So as I said on Monday night, maybe we're turning a corner on that. So that's a discussion for a different day. But given how important track position is in today's modern era of IndyCar racing, maybe they wanted to avoid that situation, of the series penalizing Nolan for, basically tell the race officials who work for Penske Entertainment to go F themselves. Maybe they wanted to show some goodwill here to avoid, being like, hey, you're not going to let you qualify. You're going to have to start from the back of the field. And then, Nolan's starting last, and then you're on the back foot the entire day. And unless, the caution come out at the at the right time for you, probably going to be a long day for the number 16. So that's really the only reason I think that they would, have him issue apology to probably, show some goodwill towards the series. So you're not going to, as I saw, the series will not potentially penalize him. But all in all, honestly, did not have an issue, with Nolan Siegel being fired up on the radio, because, that's a heat in the moment situation. He was obviously very frustrated. You probably don't want to be telling, Penske, who owns the series, to go F themselves or anything like that. Not a smart thing for Nolan to do there, but I do understand the frustration in the heat of the moment. But for me, honestly, did not see this as, a big deal. I've certainly heard people say much worse on the radio.
Yeah, I have to agree, Kobe. It's one of those things in the moment that everyone gets fired up about, that kind of thing if it's happening to you. And of course, Nolan coming back off the back of Detroit, where he also had that run-in with McLaughlin, which put him out of the race in terms of a decent result, and ended McLaughlin's chance of a win with the penalty that he got served for turning Siegel around on that restart. So second race in a row that those two guys have come together. Are we going to have now, every time that there's a Penske car involved in a slightly controversial, if I get my words out, incident, and it goes to race control, is everybody going to be up in arms about it off the back of what happened at Indianapolis? Seems that way at the moment. It is kind of trending in that direction. Also trending in that direction is a statement put out by everybody when something might have happened. It's becoming a bit ridiculous. We talked about Hocevar at the top of the show, which okay, yeah, perhaps was justified. This one just seems a bit okay, whatever. I'm probably going to have to put out a statement on social media tomorrow myself when I eat a sandwich with no butter in, and I'll have to apologise to the butter companies for not putting margarine in my sandwich. It's getting to a point where, as Josh pointed out, we can just stick a load of words into ChatGPT now, and it will churn out a statement for us, and we can post that when that's clearly not been written by a human being. That Arrow McLaren statement, as Josh pointed out as he was reading it, just silly. We all work well, we're in this game 24/7, looking at stuff and being involved, and you can look at that. That's not been written by a human being.
Yeah, Matt. And one thing I wanted to point out, I know Nathan Brown from Indy Star, he brought up an interesting example. I know we don't usually like to compare, stick and ball sports to motorsports, but Nathan used the example of of an NFL player, an NBA player, like going up to officials saying, telling them, go F yourself. Like, what's going to happen to them after that? You're either gonna get a tech, or you're gonna get in basketball, or you're gonna, get an unsportsmanlike a conduct penalty, or you're just going to get tossed from the game if you do something like that. But the situation, well, I view that different. That's like an in your face thing. Like, Nolan's in the car, he's not in the official space. If Nolan had went up to a race official, and said, go F yourselves, then I would think this apology would be necessary. But the fact that he was inside the car at the time, that's why I think that this is not really a big deal. I really didn't think Nolan needed to put out a statement over this. I didn't really think Arrow McLaren needed to put out a statement over this, but maybe a sponsor was unhappy when they saw the clip or something like that. Or, like I said, maybe they just wanted to avoid what happened to Jet William Miller and Indy Next, and avoid a penalty that could put them on the back foot at Road America. That's really the only thing that I can think of. But for me, I just saw it, hey, he's frustrated in the moment. That's what we love. We want to see drivers be authentic, be themselves out there. But when you have situations like this happen, then you're going to have the drivers censor themselves even more, and then you're not going to see the personalities that people say they want to see.
I agree with you guys 100%. Go on.
First mention of stick and ball sports there from Kobe. More on that later.
No, it's telling Penske F themselves is on mind of drivers in IndyCar. That it's not a Penske driver. Yeah, we were talking about that, me and Jake Sanson, actually, how much mess they're in.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was kind of trending towards there. Denver's got the same idea as me. If you run in with a Penske driver, because you're going to be upset with race control, aren't you? So we'll see if anything happens at Road America at the weekend. I'm sure it will.
It's going to be a fun weekend. Okay, well, next it's over to Matt White for the latest from our Grid EPI update.
Thank you, Josh. Plenty of talk of Le Mans over the weekend on our Grid Network shows, and on this show tonight, of course, with all the news that happened. Let's tell you and remind you, if you've been living under a rock, what happened on the racetrack at the weekend. A third win in a row for Ferrari. This time it is AF Corsa that come home the victors with the yellow car. Phil Hansen, Yiffy Ye, and Robert Kubica coming home, surviving a late scare from the number 6 Porsche, but coming home to win in Hypercar. I was going to call it LMP1 then. In Hypercar on Sunday afternoon. Emotion all round. Tremendous result for Robert Kubica. More on that, I'm sure, in Hots and Knots in a little while. LMP2 was a close run thing as well, but into Europole get their second Le Mans victory. Jakub Śmiechowski, Tom Dillman, and Nick Yellerly, part of that driving lineup in the number 43 Oreca, winning in LMP2. And in GT3, a win for Porsche, their 102nd class win at Le Mans, which is just a bonkers number. Richard Lees, Ryan Harwick, and Ricardo Pera, the winners in that first form Manthey Porsche 911. The Ferrari that finished fourth, of course, over the line, the Molina Fuoco Nicholas Nielsen car, was then thrown out Monday of the race, which the guys talked about on Monday night. And that means we had to do a rewrite. There it is on screen. Thank you, Kobe. The number 50 car being thrown out of the race post-race after finishing in fourth position. Big for the championship and big for the EPI, because that meant I had to go and start basically all over again on Tuesday to give you this updated leaderboard. And we have a new leader. Sound the klaxon, because Felipe Nasr and Nick Tandy have been overhauled by Antonio Giovinazzi. He now is the Grid Endurance Performance Index leader, the third leader of the season as we get to week 12, on exactly 20 points ahead of Nasr and Tandy. Those two guys, of course, back in action this weekend at Watkins Glen for the 6 hours. New entries in the top 10 there with Matisse Gerbert and Jamie Chadwick, 4th and 5th, the European Le Mans Series Championship leaders in LMP2. Didn't have a great weekend at Le Mans, but they are into the top 10 now. That's the highest a female has ever been in the Grid EPI, and we'll keep an eye on how Jamie gets on throughout the rest of the season as she tries to win a championship in her first year in prototypes. Also, there, as you can see at the bottom, Phil Hansen, Robert Kubica, and Yifi, the winners from the weekend at Le Mans, getting themselves also into the top 10, 8th, 9th, and 10th. There is the top 50. Plenty of shuffling around going on over the weekend with the results there. The LMP2 winners are up there. Jakub Śmiechowski in 18th and Nick Yellerly in 23rd on the screen as well. This weekend, another huge weekend. I mentioned IMSA at Watkins Glen. There's also British GT at Spa, their one trip outside of the UK for the season, and it's the second of the Super June 24-hour races of the month this weekend. It's the Nürburgring 24 hours this weekend, the third of the big four 24-hour races for the season after Le Mans and Daytona. Oh, and next week, it's the Spa 24 hours. So the massive month of endurance racing in June continues. We'll bring you the winners and class winners and results and pictures and everything else from IMSA at Watkins Glen, British GT at Spa, and the Nürburgring 24 hours in the Grid EPI slot on the Grid Tonight show next week. Time to hand to Kobe now with more of this week's headlines.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. The 2026 FIA World Endurance Championship schedule was revealed before last weekend's 24 hours of Le Mans. Compared to this year, the 2026 schedule is exactly the same. It's almost like they took 2025, you see there on the graphic, and just slapped a 6 on it. Yeah, because it's really nothing has changed, with Qatar hosting the prolonged preseason test, followed by the season opening Qatar 18-12 kilometer on March 28th, followed by the 6 hours of Imola and 6 hours of Spa-Francorchamps on April 19th and May 9th, respectively. After that, the 94th run of the 24 hours of Le Mans will begin on Saturday, June 13th. And once Le Mans is over, the season wraps up with the 6 hours of Sao Paulo on July 12th and Lone Star Le Mans on September 6th. The 6 hours of Fuji will take place on September 27th, and season finale, 8 hours of Bahrain on November 7th. And looking at next year's IMSA schedule, Long Beach and Imola will class the same for Canada and Brazil, but the GTP field won't be at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And ACO President Pierre Fillon said the stability of the series can be attributed to its partners, participants, and venues, graphic courtesy of the FIA World Endurance Championship. And last weekend, Charlie Henderson, owner of NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series team Henderson Motorsports, passed away. In recent years, the number 75 team has been known for entering Parker Kligerman and a few other drivers in select races and taking the fight to the bigger teams in the Truck Series garage. And following the passing of their team owner, Henderson Motorsports put out an official statement that says it is with great sadness that we announce the passing of our team owner, Charlie Henderson. Charlie was not only the driving force behind Henderson Motorsports, but also a beloved member of the NASCAR community and dear friend to us all. Charlie was the second longest active team owner in NASCAR behind only the Wood brothers. He began his racing career at Kingsport Speedway in 1975 and has been a part of NASCAR since 1982. His passion for racing, commitment to his team, and love for the sport left a lasting impact on everyone who had the privilege of working alongside him. He built this team on hard work, family values, and a love for competition that will continue to inspire us moving forward. We are grateful for the many years of leadership, friendship, and memories that Charlie gave to Henderson Motorsports and the entire NASCAR community, and we ask that you keep the Henderson family in your thoughts and prayers during this difficult time. And the driver who's been mainly featured with Henderson Motorsports over the years, Parker Kligerman, put out this statement saying, very sad day for this sport and the Henderson family. Charlie, his whole family, and this race team have meant so much to me over the last decade. When I first got to Henderson Motorsports, I'll never forget looking at the banner and the race shop full of amazing drivers who had driven for them since the 70s, true heroes of the sport. I wasn't sure if my name would make it on that banner, but by the time we got a first win, I knew I had a home. Charlie and his family, in some of my tougher moments in my racing career, have always been there to give me a shot and truly believed in me when many others didn't. And together we have done some incredible things. It was all led by Charlie, who would always push us to make the cars faster. He'd ask us, what do you need to win? He was so dedicated, even when it wasn't in his best financial interest. But no matter what, he would always text me ahead of the races, including this year, starting about 3 months before Daytona. he would send me a morning text that we will win Daytona. A couple of months later, we did. Unfortunately, he wasn't there, but seeing him afterwards, that meant the world to him. Of all his racing, he wanted to win Talladega, Daytona, and Bristol. He got those. Thank you, Charlie, for being an incredible, supportive, passionate racer that myself and many other racers owe a depth of gratitude for your support and love of racing. And yeah, and on behalf of everyone here at Grit Network, we certainly continue to send our best wishes to Charlie Henderson's family and friends during this difficult time, and we hope his memory will be a blessing. The Nissan Formula E team signed Abby Pullen to a multi-year contract to be their rookie and simulator driver last November. Pullen impressed Nissan when she set the fastest lap time in the first ever all-female drivers test session in Spain. This year, she's been competing in the GB3 Championship after winning last year's F1 Academy title and becoming the first female driver to win a British F4 race. Pullen says she's looking forward to her work in the simulator and getting on track with the Formula E car when the opportunities arise. Photo courtesy of Nissan. And unfortunately, the bad luck continues for the Iron Dames after Michelle Godin broke her foot before the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Last week was a difficult one for the all-female driver team that saw them withdraw from the Road to Le Mans support race when Marta Garcia's teammate had a health issue pop up. Then Godin was replaced by Sarah Bovey for the 24 Hours of Le Mans after breaking her foot during pit stop practice. And now the team is withdrawn from this weekend, sailing 6 hours of the Glen, which was set to see Godin compete alongside co-drivers Bovey and Rahel Fry. And in this statement right here, the Iron Dames said with heavy hearts, we announced that the Iron Dames have been forced to withdraw from this weekend's IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship round at Watkins Glen. This difficult decision comes as a result of the injury Michelle Godin sustained in the lead up to the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Michelle's health and recovery are our top priorities at this moment in time. This is a hard moment for our team and especially painful knowing how much we were looking forward to racing in front of our incredibly dedicated American fans. We're deeply grateful for your continued support through every high and low. We remain determined and resilient. We'll be back soon, stronger than ever together. And since they are committed to the Michelin Endurance Cup, the next time we will see them would be later this year at the Battle of the Bricks at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course. And if not then, got the Motul Petit Le Mans at the end of the season. Graphic there, courtesy of the Iron Dames. And as Matt talked about during his ZPI session, after finishing fourth overall in last weekend's 24 Hours of Le Mans, the number 50 AF Corsa Ferrari 499P Hypercar fell post-race inspection, was disqualified from the race. The car shared by Nicholas Nielsen, Antonio Fuoco, and Miguel Molina had an issue with the prototype's rear wing support, which was not in compliance with the deflection test indicated in Article 3.8.7 of the 2025 LMH technical regulation and the homologation form for car number 50. 4 bolts were missing from the rear wing support, and a rear wing deflection of 52 millimeters was recorded during post-race inspection, while the rules state that the maximum permissible deflection is supposed to be 15 millimeters. And in a statement, AF Corsa Ferrari said the absence of those components didn't compromise the car's safety in any way or give them a competitive advantage, but they're moving forward and getting ready for next month's race in Brazil. Photo courtesy of Ferrari. And only minutes before we came on air tonight, got some breaking news that Repco Supercars Championship driver Cam Waters will return to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series next weekend for a road course race after making 2 Truck Series starts last year at Martinsville in Kansas. Waters will get back behind the wheel of the number 66 Ford F-150 for ThorSport Racing at Lime Rock Park. This weekend, Waters will be racing at the Darwin Triple Crown weekend in Supercars at Tickford Racing, but next weekend, he'll fly from Australia to Connecticut to compete in a race that should help him shine and be competitive in the type of equipment that he'll be in. Waters said that he's genuinely happy to head back to America to race at Lime Rock since it's a fast and flowing road course, which he believes suits his driving style. Photo courtesy of ThorSport Racing. And that's all the headlines I have for you tonight. So I'll throw over to Matt for everyone's favorite game. Pick a winner.
Yeah, best of luck to Cam Waters on that one. But don't worry, NASCAR fans, he's not playoff eligible. Here is the pick a winner standings coming out of the weekend. And we still have a tie at the top between Matt B and Kobe. They are on 33 points, and I have now slipped 3 points behind. Josh is 9th on the leaderboard on 11 points. Still 120 plus points available in Pick a Winner. So plenty of time to get yourself on the board by using the hashtag Pick a Winner on the Grid Network TV's social media. The post will be up probably tomorrow via Joe for a huge list of races this weekend. It is busy, and we're going to try and do our best to try and at least pick some now. And of course, as it says there, we've got up until the green flag or green light going out or dropping of the flag or whatever, the start of all the races to change our picks. We're going to start with Formula E because they're back this weekend again in the east in Indonesia at Jakarta, which has thrown up some really good racing on that track over the last couple of years there. I get the opportunity to pick first, and I will take Oliver Rowland off the table straight away. Kobe?
Oh boy, it's getting tough to predict these Formula E races. I think I'll just pick a name out of a hat, but I'm probably gonna change it for now. Give me Pascal Wehrlein. Who you got, Josh?
Hard to tell. Vern is looking quite good, and it's a track that should suit the DS Penske. But you can't deny Ollie Rowland. He's looking so strong. Ollie Rowland is a safe bet because we can change.
Yep, we can indeed. And that, of course, don't forget, being Formula E. And it's only a single race for Formula E this weekend, one of their only single headers. And that's on Saturday, of course. Saturday, early morning, European, UK time. Very late in the middle of the night for you guys stateside. MotoGP back this weekend for one of the classic races, the Italian Grand Prix at Mugello, where Ducati are going to be running a special livery. It will be announced tomorrow. And they're going to win. And it's a sprint race, and it's going to be Marc Marquez because he hasn't been beaten yet on a Saturday. Kobe, who are you going with?
I think the predictable answer, obviously Marc Marquez. I think it's going to be really hard to beat him in one of these sprint races. Before I throw it over, Josh Adams says, rest in peace. Charlie Henderson was responsible for the Food Country USA sponsorship as well. Yeah, definitely going to miss Charlie Henderson, for everything that he's done for the sport and also for, Food Country USA as well. Who you got, Josh?
Marc Marquez, 110%. He's got the championship in a bag, but there's a few mistakes that are cropping through, but this is a circuit that he loves, and he's waited years to run it on a Ducati. He went well there last year. Now with a factory main bike, he's going to do even better. And I'm going to be shouting about it at Alton Park, hopefully.
Coming off that amazing weekend that he had at Aragon a couple of weeks ago, where he completely swept and dominated the whole weekend. Supercars are back this weekend. We mentioned Cam Walters earlier going to Darwin, as is the rest of the field are going to Hidden Valley at the weekend for the Darwin Triple Crown. 2 races on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. Me, myself, and Kobe are going to pick or at least attempt to pick the Saturday winners here and now. I am going to go. I'm going to go Brock Feeney. And then I'm going to go Red Bull all the way. I'm going to go Feeney and Brown 1-2 on that Saturday. Kobe?
I'm actually going to do the opposite of you, Matt. I'm going with Brown for race 1 and Brock Feeney for race 2.
Could be key in who gets the points if that's the way that it switches around. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, one more race to pick for on Sunday for the main race. And also on Sunday is IMSA at Watkins. Glenn mentioned it earlier. The Salem 6 Hours is back. IMSA is our only endurance racing category in Pick a Winner. Been dominated by Porsche, as we've talked about so far this year. They've won all of the races with both of their cars. I think that might come to an end. They should have won here a couple of years ago when they got disqualified. I think it comes to an end this year, and I think it comes to an end and BMW will win with the 24 car. That is my pick for Sunday's Watkins Glen IMSA race.
And I promise I'm not copying you, Matt, but I also had the number 24 BMW as well. It's been so incredible this year to see, the run that Dries Van Thor has been on in qualifying throughout the year. But unfortunately, while Dries has been very fast, the number 24 BMW MT Marlowe organization has not been able to break through yet, in a season dominated by Porsche. So I think that this is finally going to be time for BMW to get the job done. And I think you're going to see Dries Van Thor and Philip Ing, in Victory Lane at the Glen. Who you got, Josh?
I'm sticking with my safe bet and sticking with Porsche. I'm sorry, but it's going to be that. It's going to be number 6. I'm sorry. I'm sticking with that.
And of course, if Nick Tandy and Felipe Nasr do win at the weekend, they'll go back to the top of the Grid Endurance Performance Index top 10 as well. All of those picks, here's Adams. Let's run through them. He's going with Ollie Rowland for FE, Marquez, Feeney and Brown, and the 24. So he's gone exactly the same as me of the picks we've done. All of those races on screen there. So Formula E, MotoGP, Sprint and Grand Prix, 3 supercar races, IMSA at Watkins Glen, IndyCar at Road America, and NASCAR Pocono. That is the full list of Pick a Winner races for your delectation this weekend. Use the hashtag Pick a Winner, get yourself on the board. If you can get at least 3 of those, you'd jump all the way onto the board there and into 17th position and knock Matthew Owens down 1 peg, as he's on 2 points for the year. So you're very capable of getting 3 picks right this weekend, and you could see yourself on the leaderboard on the show next week. We've just ticked over an hour. We're going to go with hots and knots to finish off, as we always do. We'll bring Josh back in with me. Have you recovered, Josh, from your triple, quadruple, 5 toplet stint or whatever across the weekend of racing?
Just about. The voice sound. Well, I woke up 9:15 on Saturday morning. I did not go to sleep until 4:30 Monday morning.
Goodness me! After IndyCar finished.
Yeah. I got saved halfway through that IndyCar broadcast by Jake Sanson, who joined from Thailand, of course, because it's early in the morning for him. Hello, I'm back. Sorry about that. I'm here. Hello.
Sure.
Yeah, the internet's being a bit. It's the internet being a bit dicky, but yeah. So I've recovered just about from the weekend. The only problem is the voice. I might not notice that I'm not exactly as 100% on the voice today. I woke up and it was just gone. So it's back, but I can't go higher. The hardest thing was calling the start of the Formula One race. I had to go so low for that. It was unbelievable. And then what going happens? The McLarens. Yeah. I loved that race. I really did. That's my hot is the Canadian Grand Prix because it was fantastic. It was like 2010 Canada. It showed us why it should be on the calendar. There was overtakes left, right, centre, drama. I didn't even know during the broadcast that Hamilton had wing damage because he hit a ground dog. I didn't know because we were focusing on so much other stuff that was going on. Fantastic Grand Prix.
I think Ted mentioned it from the pits on Sky, but yeah, it was a shame for Lewis because the rest of that front group were all together, weren't they? George, Kimi, of course, that's a big hot, his first podium at the weekend. Obviously, Max in there and the McLarens before they inevitably crashed into each other, which was going to happen at some stage of the year. And yeah, silly from Lando, but he held his hands up to it, I thought, pretty much straight away. He knew exactly that he'd made an error there. And all he's done is shoot himself in the foot because Oscar finished where he was running anyway.
I could see it in my mind's eye. We were saying in the commentary throughout the whole race, they're going to come together. It's going to happen. They're going to crash. And as soon as it started, I knew it was going to end in a crash because that's the next thing on the list for them to do. And to have it exactly the same as what happened with Button and Hamilton, that was weird. Now, one thing I did find weird is that in that instance, Button got the penalty, but in this instance, Lando got the penalty. What was basically exactly the same thing. Oscar was clever with how he positioned the car because he gave Lando no room. Now, if I was on the stewarding panel, I would have argued that Piastri was also at fault because he deliberately didn't give racing room to Lando, but also Lando was at fault for going for a move that was never on. I found it, even in the 2011 crash with Hamilton and Button, I found it a bit daft to give a penalty to either because it's the natural racing line. And I still find it daft now as to why we've got a penalty. It's a racing incident. But that accounts a racing incident isn't like, oh, nobody's at fault. A racing incident in terms that you can't put 100% of the blame or even part, like a 60-40 on one or the other driver. It's a 50-50 incident, and that's what it was. Piastri deliberately closed the door, and Lando thought that the door was there when it never was. So, in my book, it was both of them at fault. It's not damaged the Constructors' Championship. It hasn't really damaged the Drivers' Championship. We were lucky in many respects. It's happened now and not later on in the season. And now I think Zach and Andreas Stella need to sort of go, yeah, guys, that's it now. Just calm it down. John, have you got any more hots?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if anything or whatever happens at Austria next, which of course is next weekend. Let's run through Denver's hots. AC/DC headline at the BP Adelaide Grand Prix Grand Finale Sunday night concert. Now he's going to be hot. And Lenny Kravitz on Friday. Big. Adam says Bubba Wallace being hot for the weekend. Scotty Mack and SVG running in the sorry, let me reread that again. Wallace, Scotty and SVG running in the legend car in the week at Charlotte. Team Trackhouse sweeping the weekend well, they did in terms of their drivers, but of course Suarez was running for Junior Motorsports, so it kind of doesn't. I guess we have to mention that Daniel Suarez winning on Saturday in front of the home crowd, the first person to win from the back of the grid in any NASCAR National Touring Series on a road course ever. Hasn't been number 4, and Suarez did it on Saturday. Yeah, I know. You would have thought that would have happened somewhere along the line, but it hasn't on a road course, and Suarez did that on Saturday.
But to be Suarez as well.
I don't think I have any more knots.
No. There's not much that happened.
I have knots.
The MR safety crew was fantastic, getting to Joseph Newgarden within 5 seconds. That was amazing.
Catch up on IndyCar. I think that's my tomorrow evening sorted to watch that race, but I think it was a big one.
You'll enjoy it. It was a good race there as well.
Pictures of the fire at the beginning across the backstretch.
The boom!
Of the year at Gateway.
Yeah. It actually put debris onto the track. They had to have an extra caution lap at the start because there's debris on the straight. No, other than that, not much happened. Obviously, big not Danica Patrick, Nico Rosberg kind of owned her a lot throughout the broadcast weekend.
Oh, really?
Should we turn our attention to Le Mans? And one safety car at Le Mans, that's fantastic. But the 83 Ferrari making it a tripletta, which is a hat trick in Italian, for the 50, the 51, and the 83. Thank you. That was Tom Cancer gave me that one. But yeah, all 3 now have won a Le Mans 3 years running, and the 83 won it, and it was Robert Kubica who won at the line. Such a good news story for Motorsport as well, after all this stuff, and I couldn't believe it. That was fantastic ending.
Yeah, pleased for Robert after all the things that he's been through over the last 15 odd years since that terrible rallying accident. And Phil Hansen, who's been around the block enough, come multiple-time European Le Mans Series winner, and Yiffy, those two are going to be the Van Foors, Lotteras, Estras, those kind of guys of the next generation, and they've now got themselves a Le Mans win under their belt, which is kind of good. Can I? Go on.
Yeah, go on. I was gonna say it didn't feel like 24. It didn't feel like 24 hours. I don't know if that's because I do like 39 easy now, but the 24 hours, you felt dead a little bit. But
I saw 15 minutes of it, so
yeah, it didn't feel like a 24 hours. There was only there was a couple of full course yellows, but one safety car. I think 50 cars finished, 12 retired. It's like, come on, this is Le Mans. You're supposed to have a bit more than that. It was a bit of a down weekend.
Yeah, no safety cars and no weather either. And of course, it always rains at Le Mans. Well, actually, it didn't this year for a change. I bet maybe we're making up for all that rain we had last year with all that running in the night behind the safety car when they just could not go. Can we pick up on Denver's knot that he threw up on Kobe had on the screen? Because this was my big knot of the weekend. Denver says, what's not the NASCAR field of Mexico City getting smoked by SVG and showing a clear indication that how poor they are against an elite road course driver. Now, if I had a can, I'd do the Ben thing, but I haven't got one. The discourse over all of this since Sunday night has been just ridiculous. This is the system. You win a race, you get in the playoffs. It's been like this for a long time, and still we moan. Now, there is a corner of the NASCAR fan base that A, didn't want that race to be outside the country, B, didn't want it to be in Mexico, and C, didn't want it to be at Richmond. Now, which was where the date came from, with Richmond going down to one race. I'm sorry, but that race had much more excitement than a Richmond race, which used to be called the Action Track, and has been very boring over the last few years. Yes, Shane was gone at the front, especially in stage 3. Ty Gibbs ran him quite closely in the first half of the race, and Christopher Bell did at the beginning of stage 3. But once Bell faded away, Shane was gone. And he said it's one of the best cars he's ever had in his whole career. So, yeah, to win by that much, fair play to the guy. And that's what he's come in to do. He's come in to win. The Trackhouse have put faith in him to win one of the, 4 or 5 road and street races that are now on the calendar. And he's gone and done it. And he can probably win the next 3 at Sonoma, Watkins Glen, and Chicago. And that would put him in the playoffs as the number 2 seed, give or take the odd stage with anyone else between now and the end of the season. And then in the second, that would pretty much guarantee, if he doesn't do massively have a real mare in the first round of the playoffs, that would get him through to round 2 of the playoffs. And in round 2 of the playoffs, there's the Roval. They're playing the system. Don't hate the guy that's there doing the system has been put in front of him. He's just playing the game. We mentioned stick and ball sports earlier. NASCAR wanted to be like stick and ball sports and have a playoff because everything else has to be like the NBA or the NFL. This is what we've got. Live with it.
Well,
no one had these complaints last year when Harrison Burton won at Daytona.
Yeah.
That was a great, good, feel-good story. He won in the Wood Brothers car. Jeff Burton in the booth. Lee Diffie giving the call. Your son's done it, etc. It was great. Why are we having the same discussion about this guy winning his second Cup race by a margin, a huge margin?
He was the best on the day. He deserves to be in the playoff situation where there's more tracks he can suit. Absolutely. Just because he's SVG doesn't mean a thing. It gets to me because if you don't like the playoffs, we all don't. It's all ridiculous, yes, but the drivers are going to play the system because that's what Jerry Logano has done several times. Last year, he won 3 races, and he won the 3 races he needed to win.
Exactly.
So
you look at Larson at the weekend, got pinballed by Kyle Busch in the first stage and was out of the race. They got the car back out. He gets fastest lap. It was 1 point. How many points did he lose the regular season championship by last year? 1 point. It all matters.
And I think that's what... Now, though, we're coming towards that in-season tournament, and there's going to be a slight attention on that. But
I don't care about that.
I don't care about it, but it's going to get a little bit more... You're going to have a split of the drivers who want the in-season, who can't go for playoffs, who can't go for the Cups, and they're going to be fighting harder. So it kind of does work.
It's going to make the next few weeks interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to confuse the hell out of us, but it's going to make it fun.
I think it might be the NASCAR Insights Twitter account, posted the provisional seeding in the week post-Mexico. Still got Denny Hamlin at the top.
And he missed the race.
He's only won 1 race. He's only ran in 1 race. So how can he still be? Obviously, with his win at Michigan, puts him top seed. he hasn't had a second race. So now that's going to get confusing. Where do they post him after it gets put together after Pocono this week?
Just run 36 races. That's it.
And have the person that wins the most points. Yeah.
Yeah,
thanks, Matt,
it's just
for ruining.
IndyCar apparently are thinking about going a playoff route. You know,
really. Well, of course, we've got Supercars doing their playoff thing, haven't we, this year? But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out when we get to the end of the year. But
I guarantee you, if IndyCar goes to playoffs, Formula One will think about it.
Well, it'd be Palou versus Kirkwood at the moment, won't it?
For God's sake, that's a
can win the races.
Yeah, that's a not actually. Step it up, everybody else. What the hell's happened to you? Because Palou's been champion a couple of years running now. Nothing's changed. Why is Kirkwood the only one who can match him? What's going on? It's like the entire IndyCar paddock this year have taken a snooze. Step it up. It's daft. Why is it always? I said again. Oh, so is this going to be the season then? It's now Palou 5, Kirkwood 3. It's just it's daft. Oh, just I hate it. That's a not for me. 36 races as well. Yeah, just with 36 races. It also means what's not Jacques Villeneuve's apparent bias against Aussie F1 drivers. Well, that comes from another thing.
Yeah, I saw that. Everyone not blaming Oscar for the incident. Jacques Villeneuve went, I'm going to blame Oscar Piastri because that's the different thing to do.
Yeah.
JB
Well,
all over it.
I saw it as a pragmatic, it's 50-50. Because I saw what I could see and move the thing. But it's just get on with it. It's racing. Stop blaming. And I hated all of the people on social media going, oh, get over yourselves. It's racing. You can go crying. You can't. We commentate on this sport. We see these people day in, day out. We've interviewed them. They're not crying. We're not crying. Why should you be crying? It's a motorsport event. It's entertainment. It's not your life. You watch it. It drives me up the wall. It really does. That just don't make it your personality. Otherwise, you become mindless sheep. You watch a sport. You love a driver. Fair enough. Don't make it, all out war. It's the Team LH stuff. It's the Max Verstappen stuff. It's the Lando Norris stuff. It is insane. Just the worst thing to happen to Formula One was social media. The worst thing.
Yeah.
Hands down.
I think I've said this on the show before. I've only ever had a strop after one race before, and that was Nürburgring 2005, where Raikkonen's suspension failed on the beginning of the last lap.
Yeah.
And I went in the garden for 45 minutes because I couldn't believe they hadn't brought him in and not changed the tyres. He would have at least finished, not won the race, but at least finished. Anyway,
I've had it once. I've had it once, and that was after Brazil 2007 when Hamilton's gearbox went, and I was like, "Oh no, missed." Because at that point, no matter what you are, if you lived in Britain and were British, you wanted Hamilton to win the title so bad. It was like Mansell mania all over again. But yeah, I think the only other time I've sort of gone, I need a minute, was after Charles Leclerc won in Spa in 2019. The whole emotion of the weekend. Yeah. I got choked up in the commentary box, and during the interviews, I stepped out, had a bit of a breather, because I was very choked up. I was like, I can't believe he's won. His best mate died yesterday. It was a weird weekend, that one.
Didn't he, as well? So went back
back to back. And that one was powerful. That one was emotion. To be honest with you, it showed the highs and lows of Formula One, that one. But yeah, I get what you mean with having to take a few moments with it. And that's what motorsport fans do. A moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we should be doing. And you'll be having a moment, I'm sure, more moments than one. We have to say hot Steve Ryder, final touring car broadcast at the weekend.
Yeah.
Final motorsport broadcast as a whole. He's been on the UK television screens for all of my, I'm a lot older than you, Josh, and he's been on the TV for all of my lifetime, doing rallying and touring cars and F1, of course, when he was at ITV, in the ITV F1 days, and everything else. An absolute icon of British motorsport broadcasting, and his career hangs up the microphone this weekend at Alton Park.
Yep, we are thinking about what to get him as a going away present. We're thinking some sort of plant. He does like gardening. But maybe a bottle of shampoos or something to say thank you, because he is such a wonderful man. And his last one song here at Alton Park, and there is a little leaving do just afterwards that we're going to be all saying goodbye to him with, and I think he's making a speech of some kind. But it's going to be weird because it's weird for me because Steve was the third person I met in the touring car paddock when I got in there last year. And he introduced me to all the people in the media. He was so kind. Every time I've seen him at the track, he's always stopped me and asked how it's going, how are you enjoying it? And even this year, we were live on air, and I beckoned him out the ITV studio, and we had a little conversation. And then off air, we ran past each other, and he said, you still going? You still enjoying it? I said, yeah, not too bad, not too bad. And he said, oh, yeah, we've just been on the grid doing the pre-show. So he's a fantastic bloke, and it's not going to be the same without him. And I don't want him to go, because it's sort of reassuring to know that Steve's got your back. And I don't know, it's just weird. But yeah, final weekend, and I'll be saying goodbye, as well as the whole field. And I think there's a thing on Saturday night as well with a ceremony. So I've got to find the details on that, but it's going to be fun.
I'm sure you'll tell us all about it on the show next week.
Oh yeah. I'll get some photos and some videos as well from behind the scenes. And if what I expected to do there's a karaoke, maybe see Paul O'Neill butchering one of his sister's songs.
Not for the first or last time.
No, he's not. Certainly not. I hope he gets the job. Actually, I still don't know who's taking over from Steve. It's not Louise. I know that. Okay. So, taking a look, yeah, she doesn't want it. She said she doesn't want it. I asked her that, Donington. She said, "No, I'm happy running up and down the pit lane, elbowing me to get out of my way." He elbowed. Literally, I was stood there, I was doing interviews. She just went, "Get out of the way, out of the way." I'm like, "All right, fine. I think we've got things to do." Okay, so taking a look at our upcoming schedule, you can stay tuned for our Grid Live pre-race standalone shows to preview NASCAR at Pocono and IndyCar at Road America. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up is 90 minutes after the 6-hour IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship race at Watkins Glen. And on Monday night, Grid Encore is at 7 p.m. Eastern, recapping the truck Xfinity races at Pocono, ARCA at Elko, and Indy Next at Road America as well. Please continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for helping us reach 1,600 subscribers. We're now inching closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air, and you can follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, Mark, Rochelle, Robin, David and Matthew, who invest each month in the Grid Network, and we encourage you to join these fine folks to help us keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the track more often and continue to grow our media outlet. The link to all that is in the video description below. And if you want to do a one-time donation, you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want. Consider buying a specific on-air personality of cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. I've got 18 seconds left. So for Kobe Lambeth and Matt White for the Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time, and with 8 seconds to spare.